Hey folks, Dr. Mike Israetel here for Renaissance Periodization, Nutrition Myths. Got a whole series for you. Here's video number 1. Calories don't matter? What? So we're going to do 4 things today, and this is going to be the pattern repeated through this series. We're going to talk about what the claim actually is to make sure it's mythical. Then we're going to talk about why it's wrong. But after that, we're going to cut it some slack because there are grains of truth to almost every myth. So we're going to accept those, make sure that they're out there. And then lastly, we're going to finish with best practices to make sure that, we're not just crapping on myths, which is fun, but also that we're leaving you guys with some helpful advice. We're like, okay, this is wrong, but where do we go from here? So without further ado, the claim that calories don't matter is usually not a technical thermodynamics claim in a food sciences laboratory. It's usually a claim that calories don't determine fat loss. Someone will say, hey, I'm trying to lose fat. Someone else will say, hey, you probably should count your calories. And someone else comes in and goes, oh, no, don't do that because calories have nothing to do with fat loss. People actually say this and they actually mean it often, like a lot, right? Now, they don't usually say this and follow up with, well, there's nothing you can do about fat loss because nothing affects it. For good reason they don't say that. They have alternative ideas about what causes fat loss, such as hormones, such as food choices, how your nutrient timing is, and many, many, many other things. So a lot of times, the food choice is the real big one. They'll say, well, it's these kinds of foods that affect your hormones like this that make you fat. But if you eat these other kinds of foods that are not bad foods, then you won't get fat and you can eat as many of those as you like. Interesting claim. We'll examine that in a second. And another very related claim is that calorie counting as a process itself doesn't work. Not exactly the same claim because some of the folks that say calorie counting doesn't work do admit that calories matter, but that people just aren't good at counting calories. I think there's a lot more validity in that. But nonetheless, people really do think calories don't matter. So let's examine why that is probably incorrect, to put it charitably. We can think of at least 4 reasons. Reason number 1, body weight is determined in the long term, especially tissue size, because water weight can fluctuate. The amount of tissue you have in your body is determined exclusively by calorie balance. Exclusively. There's nothing else that determines it. What composition your tissues are, muscle versus fat, now that's different. That's not just calories. Other stuff plays a role. But the total amount of tissue you have is calories. So if someone weighs 600 pounds, they're in an excess calorie state all the time. That is the only way to get to weighing 600 pounds of actual tissue. Now, this fact is laboratory confirmed, okay? First of all, which means that they've done direct studies with all kinds of different diets. And when they make the right calorie adjustments, people lose weight very predictably or gain weight very predictably or maintain it exactly to prediction. The reason this works is point number 2 sub 2 here is that it is governed by the laws of thermodynamics, which as we have yet been able to illustrate in macro phenomena that are not quantum-based, thermodynamic processes are never violated. Never have been, at least yet, and it would be real curious if someone did. Now, there's a bunch of other studies and observations that sort of corroborate this evidence. One thing you guys can Google for yourself is the Twinkie study by Dr. Mark Haub, and he was a researcher in the Kansas area and a university professor, actually the chair of the nutrition department where Dr. Jen Case of RP got her PhD in human nutrition. And he was basically getting not harassed, but kind of razzed by his coworkers because he was the head of the nutrition department, and he would have a healthy lunch that they would bring to meetings. And he would also have a couple snack cakes like Twinkie or Ho-Ho or whatever. And, usually, of course, other people from other departments would be like, oh, Dr. Hobb, you sure you can have that? I thought you were the nutrition professor. And he's like, actually, it's totally healthy to eat a little bit of junk food here and there as long as your calorie balance is in order. And I don't know about that. So he got frustrated and he did a little pilot experiment on himself where he ate almost exclusively snack cakes, like legit Little Debbie snack cakes, Twinkies, Ho-Hos, all that delicious stuff, delicious for 1 or 2 bites. And then you're like, why the hell am I eating this? He did that for a few months. He also had a little tiny bit of vegetables just to get his micronutrients in. And for protein and more micronutrients, he had a little bit of skim milk on the side. Other than that, the vast preponderance, 80-90% of his calories came from snack cakes. What ended up happening was he lost exactly as much weight as he predicted, and every single blood marker of his health improved. Holy crap. So when people say, well, it's the foods you eat, it's not the calories, Twinkie study is an awfully, awfully interesting thing to read after that. And the thing is, we're not just relying on it, we're relying on tons of lab experience and the basic laws of thermodynamics. So it's a thing. Calories do matter. And in fact, if calories didn't matter, how would that even work? So for example, if you weigh 150 pounds and you want to be 175 and jacked, how do you gain to 175 without extra physical energy? Again, that violates laws of thermodynamics. You have extra matter in your body. Where did it come from? Where did it come from? You can't eat the same amount of food that kept you at 150 and have the activity be the same, thus you're in calorie balance, and get to 175. How does that work? Where does stuff come from? Right? It's like having a skyscraper halfway constructed, and there's tons of bricks in one of the yards down the street. We're like, yeah, we're not going to ship any more bricks. The engineers are like, how are we supposed to build a skyscraper bigger? Like, I don't know, figure it out. Okay, raw materials have to be a part if you're going to make something bigger, period. There's no other way. And calories are just a representation of how much raw material you have. Secondly, another weird scenario that we would see that we never do is if calories really don't matter, perhaps if you could eat the right kinds of foods, you could subsist on 500 calories a day and not starve. I mean, can you imagine going to a famine-stricken area and there's people out there like begging for food and you're like, you don't need more calories. What you need is avocado. Just a small amount will get your hormones settled. You'll be fine. That's nonsense, right? So it straight up doesn't work. And it's not that the idea just doesn't work and we're crapping on it. It has negative effects. For example, it leads people into dangerous misunderstandings if you are willing to suspend disbelief and assume that calories don't matter. Good God, your toolbox of understanding how to diet and make sense of the world is kind of gone. I mean, I don't know what you're thinking at that point. You probably don't either. It's like telling someone, you don't really need a resistance train to get bigger muscles. Like weight doesn't need to be challenging or heavy. Your muscles don't need to face a challenge to get hypertrophy. You'd be like, okay. So you go to a seminar and some egghead scientist tells you that, okay. And you go home and you're like, how am I supposed to lift weights? Do I have to lift weights? How do I get big? I mean, these are one of the pinnacle facts of physiology. We're just tossing out. It leaves people confused. And worse still, it leads them to abandon core good dieting principles and go fad to fad to fad, trying to search for those magic foods, avoiding the calorie problem. And what are they going to be doing? They're going to be searching for those magic foods forever because, drumroll, they don't exist. So it's not a good situation. Now, some of the stuff about calories not mattering does have grains of truth around it. There is a silver lining. For example, the types of foods you consume, it's not all calories, per even numbers of calories, the types of food you choose to fill those calories can have a big differential effect on muscle versus fat. So if you eat more protein, that's better. It makes you more muscular, less fat. More fiber is better. And oftentimes, for bulking purposes and cutting purposes, slightly lower intakes of fats, more intakes of protein and carbs, how most bodybuilders eat, are better. So if you're telling someone, well, calories don't matter because you have to eat really good foods, they do matter, and the really good foods matter to determine not just body weight, but body composition, because not so many people care a ton how much they weigh. It turns out they just really care about how they look, right? So like if you gave someone who weighed, let's say a female who weighs 180 pounds at 5'2", and you're like, oh, that's a hefty gal there. All right. And you tell her, look, like we have this experimental procedure. We shoot you with these zeta rays. Don't worry. They're safe. The test monkeys love them. You shoot the girl with zeta rays, and the result is she weighs the same 180. We literally step on a scale and like straight up X-Men Wolverine style, adamantium skeleton in, like step on the shit and like, holy crap. But her body externally looks and feels exactly like someone who weighs 120 pounds. Okay, fucking little abs, little arm chisel, shape. How many people, given that the procedure, le procedure, is safe, okay, let's say it's actually safe, not just that the monkeys haven't died yet. How many people be like, nah, it's not for me. There's no way I can weigh 180. I feel like a ton of people, not everyone, but a ton, would be like, whoa, I get to look like that. Be like, yes. And you have all the strength and energy of someone's 120, and you physically weigh 180, but you're not going to feel like it. You can jump up and down. Wolverine. Okay. How many people be like, nah? Tons of people are like, yeah, I'll take that, because people fundamentally care about how they look, not how much they weigh. So a lot of times when people say, calories didn't work for me. They counted calories, they lowered their calories, they ate mostly crappy foods, they lost some muscle, a lot of muscle, some fat, they end up looking like a smaller version of themselves, and they're like, okay, you have this idea when you start a fat loss diet and start training that you're going to get in this chiseled situation, and then you just end up looking like a smaller version of your fat self, so you're skinny fat now, and it's like, this is not what I had in mind. But then they stop paying attention to calories, they start getting in more protein, more veggies, more whole grains, they start weight training maybe, more physical activity. All of a sudden, they regain some weight. So they went from 180 to let's say 155, and they look like kind of blah there, blah there. They regain up to 165, and they lost tons more fat, gained muscle. Their body shape is excellent. Some of those folks might be like, well, see, calories don't matter. They do. It's just this stuff also matters as well. Big, big important points. Number 2, point to sort of why people may think this. Food timing can determine energy for activity. Okay, food composition and the timing. Okay, if you eat like one meal of donuts, you just go to sleep right after. But 4 meals of the same calories spread over the day of protein, carbs, and fats and healthy stuff, veggies, can keep you active and feeling amazing. So when you tell someone, look, calories are king and they super matter, they're like, okay, so hypothetically I should be able to just eat donuts all day, but if I eat the right amount, I'll lose weight. And they're like, well, yeah, lose weight, but you won't have any energy to move around. So then you won't lose weight because your calories out is different. It's a bag of cats. And also, if someone tries a diet that says, look, calories don't matter, but when that person does that wrote the diet for them is they make them eat healthy foods, first of all, a lot of times the calories will be lower because there's only so much healthy food you can get. We'll get that to that in a sec. But also they have so much energy, feel so great that they're like, yeah, well, calories don't matter. I tried this diet that wasn't calorie-based and I felt the best ever, so calories don't matter. Erroneous conclusion, but you can see where they're coming from on that. Another one. Foods have a big effect on health. A lot of times when you tell people the calories are a huge effect on health because if you shrink down, it's better. Like, okay, I'm going to eat pink Twinkies and pizza and shrink down. But what about healthy foods? Like there's something there. There absolutely is something there. Even if you're eating same amount of calories, if the food composition is better, your health improves more. So when we tell people calories matter, we're never saying it's the only thing that matters. It's absolutely true. If you eat more lean proteins, veggies, fruits, whole grains, healthy fats, and a little bit less junk, your health is going to improve at any level of calories. Period. Now that any level of calories is the next point, point number 4. If you eat mostly healthy foods, what you end up doing is just satiating yourself that much more, which is to say that if I give you a bunch of healthy food and I give you 1,000 calories of it, you're going to go through it. It's going to take you like half an hour to eat. And you'll be like, oh my God, that was fine. But like, I don't want to eat for 4 hours. And for 4 hours, you're going to have tons of energy. You're not going to want to eat. Couple meals like that, and you're into, let's say, 3,000 calories over the day, which might be a deficit for you, and you're losing weight and you feel full, you have tons of energy, amazing. But if you try to eat 1,000 calories of super junk food, I mean, you guys know how it is. Friday and Saturday nights are a thing. You zip through that shit so fast that you're like, oh, that was 1,000 calories. I can eat right now. As a matter of fact, I think I'm hungrier after eating that. And certainly a few hours later, you're ready to eat again and you want super tasty foods again because a lot of those foods that are junky, they make you want more of them. Like nobody has a couple of scoops of ice cream maybe some people can stop after a couple of scoops, not me. A couple of spoonfuls of ice cream and they're like, nah, I'm good. Okay, just don't do that, right? How many people like have 1 or 2 potato chips and they're like, that's it for me, stomach's really small. Get out of here. A lot of those foods that are super high calorie, super junky, they're easy to eat and just get way carried out of hand, and then you just want more of them. So all of a sudden, you're trying to eat 3,000 calories a day, but if you do that with just junk foods, you get super hungry, super low on energy, and it sucks, and then you end up eating more. And then you're eating 4,000, which is no longer a deficit, and you're like, oh man, like I thought calorie balance was a thing. Well, it's much harder to pull off if you don't control the quality of your foods. Making your calories lower is way easier if you eat the right food. So it's not calories matter only. It's calories matter in addition to other variables, but they don't never not matter. Now, all of these effects change the result from the same calorie diet a lot. So what that means is, especially if you take adherence into account, folks that are experimenting with only counting calories, because I know people still do this sometimes. They'll get on MyFitnessPal or something, which can be used very, very properly and not so properly, and they'll just count calories. And they won't focus on any kinds of foods. And a lot of times they don't succeed with dieting or they don't really get impressive results because just calorie counting in the context of still eating not so great foods, which doesn't work all that well because you're essentially just turning everything against yourself. It's kind of like trying to drive a race car with a really powerful engine, but the steering is rudimentary. It sucks. There's no electronics whatsoever. There's barely even a mirror to look back, front, side, and the brakes are sticky. It's like, yeah, okay, the huge engine's there, but there's a lot more to a race car and its performance than just the engine. So if we include the same calories and even maybe lower calories, we eat more healthy foods, have good meal timing, eat the right macronutrients, all of a sudden, it's like this easy process that just happens. You do it, you get these great results. It's like a race car with a same great engine, but all the fancy works, the lane indicators to when you swerve out of a lane, steer assist, all that stuff, it gives you the best possible advantages, so take them. So when we say calories matter, they do, but other stuff matters too. It's not either or. It's both. It's not a single factor. So when we say calories matter, just know that other things matter as well. And folks that are super sharp on the internet, on Instagram and stuff, the science crowd, they usually don't just say, hey, calories matter, shut up. Usually they say, hey, calories matter, but here's some other stuff that can help you hit the calories you need and help you in multiple other ways. And those are the ways of the following. If you focus on mostly nutritious, healthy foods, control portion sizes, you will get the results that you're after. If at any point during that time you start to ignore calories, you will not see the kind of fat loss or muscle gain you want. So the real ticket is to eat very well and then take that well eating and adjust its calories up and down as needed. Not to eat like shit and then just be like, lob off calories. Okay, that's not sustainable. It's not the best way forward. First, choose the best stuff, choose good timing, and then alter its calories, which is pretty easy because you can't eat a lot of that stuff anyway, and you'll get the results you need. Folks, that's it for this myth. See you next time for the next myth.